Hello there, people of the internet. How's everybody doing today? I'm doing alright, thanks for asking. It's actually a very nice day out here. Don't have a lot of breeze coming through. It's a comfortable 65 out right now, I'm going to assume. Not a cloud in the sky. Perfect time to make a video. I even hear some gunfire in the background. So that tells me that today is a perfect day for shooting stuff. I'm going to apologize in advance. Ammunition prices here in the United States are quite significant, and ammunition is progressively becoming less and less available. That being said, I don't have as much ammunition for this video as I would like to have, so that's not really what this video is going to be about. We are going to shoot some stuff, but right now we're going to go ahead and talk about some of the different kinds of firearms that I own. I'm doing video series talking about all the different things that I own, because I own so many different types of rifles, so many different historical pieces, different mechanical pieces. I own a lot of not necessarily unique stuff, but a lot of stuff that has history behind it, and we're going to go ahead and visit some of that. So in this particular case, what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about Russian small arms development. Now, black powder was invented by the French in 1886, and it did not take very long at all for all these other countries to figure it out as well, and everyone adopted it, and now suddenly you had this much cleaner burning powder that could lob lead at far, greater ranges than black powder ever could. So in 1891, a couple of people got together, a Russian fella by the name of Mosin, and a Belgian feller, I think he was Belgian feller by the name of Nagant. Nagant. That's how people want me to pronounce it. Nagant. I will try that. I'm used to saying Nagant. I apologize if I say that. I'm going to try and say Nagant. But they got together, they designed this rifle in 1891. It was adopted by the Russian military. Actually, I think it was adopted in 1891. They began developing before that, obviously. But it served Russia faithfully, to say the least. In the 1930s, they revisited the design of this rifle, made a couple of little minor changes to make things a little bit easier to manufacture, but for the most part, it was the same rifle. It still is. That rifle's designation is the 9130, which is what I have here. This is a non-refurbished 9130. Definitely seen some hardships in its life, but boy is it a good shooter. I'm super stoked that I picked this thing up. These things used to be a lot cheaper to pick up than they are now, but I still got that thing at a pretty damn good price at modern age. Now the Mosin-Nagant is chambered in the 54 rimmed cartridge, 7.62 by 54 rimmed. Back then, it was easier to headspace a rifle on the rim of the cartridge. This right here just made manufacturing easier, which is why Russia and the British adopted rimmed cartridges in their repeating rifles. Now, the Mosin's magazine system does have a cutoff in it to where you don't have to worry about rim lock as much as you would if you were firing a British rifle. That right there made it much easier to give these rifles to untrained civilians, to conscripted people that didn't necessarily want to learn how to use it, and they would still be able to use it more effectively than they would if they were given a rifle where rim lock was a big deal. The 54 rimmed was a very, very early cartridge, but it saw a lot of use. As a matter of fact, I believe it is still in use to this day in some countries. So despite the fact that it is a more primitive cartridge, it does have a massive, massive rim on it. Maybe not as massive as a Lebel round, but still quite sizable. Even with its primitive design, it is still a significantly good cartridge. I know I love it, and I know there's plenty of other people out there that love it as well. And having this rimmed cartridge for so long, Russia design and development around it got very, very good. The Russians were quite good at designing guns that could deal with having a rimmed cartridge. So let's see, they had the 1891, revised it to the 9130. During the Second World War, countries were beginning to realize that they didn't need these nice, long, traditional length rifles, and they started adopting shorter rifles. Russia was no exception. This right here is basically the same gun as a 9130, it's just been cut down a little bit. The muzzle flash on this thing is absolutely nuts. She is definitely a far shorter rifle, and they also mounted the bayonet on the side of the rifle so the soldiers didn't have to carry it around, and they didn't risk losing it, I suppose. There was a shorter rifle that came before this model right here that did not have the bayonet mounted on the side, but I don't have one of those, so I could still say though that the history of the rifle is basically the same as this thing right here. Now, whenever you shorten the barrel of a gun, you do lose velocity, even with smokeless powder rounds. However, it's not as extreme as it is with the black powder rounds. Other countries were beginning to see this as well. Britain saw this after World War II. Germany, they adopted their Carbine rifles, which were their shorter rifles, got the job done well enough, etc., etc. However, this shorter bolt-action rifle that was the same design as the 1891 in terms of mechanically, firing a full-length rifle cartridge out of that shorter rifle, especially if you don't have any hearing protection, especially if you have ranks of men all alongside you firing the same rifle, it is very, very concussive. I can't imagine going through that. If you're in a hallway as well, an enclosed area, and you fire that thing, Jesus Christ, those poor Russian soldiers. Now, during the Second World War, semi-automatic rifles were also becoming the next wave of the future. Germany tried doing it, America tried doing it successfully, Russia also did it. They managed to develop a semi-automatic rifle chambered in 7.62 by 54 rim, the SPT-40. Now, this rifle did not serve Russia in its current configuration for very long, but there were a significant amount of these rifles made. I would be happy to show off one of these rifles, if I had one, but alas, I do not. Now, Germany at the time was developing a firearm, the Sturmgewehr 44, that was intended to be both a long-range firearm, or at least long enough range to handle the situations that they were handling with the combat that they were facing. They wanted something that they could fire at long range, but still have the firepower of a submachine gun were they to come into closer range combat. Eventually, the Russians tried developing the same exact thing. This is what became the AK-47. They saw the intermediate cartridge, intermediate range machine gun to be the next wave of the future, and it really did become the next wave of the future. Every small arm that every major military has right now is exactly that. But the AK-47 caused a lot of problems. They tried figuring out a way to get it to where they can just stamp sheet metal, this cheap, easy to produce intermediate length rifle. Though because of manufacturing at the time, technology at the time, they had a little bit of trouble with it. So eventually they ended up just milling out AK-47 receivers. This kind of defeated the purpose. They wanted something cheap, easy to produce, just like what the Germans had done during the Second World War. So while they were trying to figure out the AK-47's problems, they ended up adopting exactly this. This right here is the SKS. They knew that they were not going to have the SKS in service for very long, but they still wanted to, I guess, throw a bone to the guy that developed it. Now, this SKS, I'm sure you guys have noticed, there is no bayonet on it. I do not own an SKS bayonet for this thing. However, I do like it without the bayonet. Like, honestly, I'd prefer it without the bayonet, but that's just my own personal preference. If you're having SKS and you want a bayonet on your own, go for it. I'm not going to stick one on mine. Now, just like the Garand, the SKS is a semi-automatic versus its later development, the AK-47, which is both semi-automatic and fully automatic. This right here holds 10 rounds in an internal magazine that you load in from a stripper clip in the top. This right here is as modern of the older style of weapons as you can get. So eventually the Russians did figure out their stamped sheet metal AK-47s, probably about 10 years later or so. And then after that, this right here was made. This is the iconic AK-47, minus the gas block. The gas block is different on this one. Originally, the front sight would be out at the front of the barrel, but in this case, on my AKM, I have a gas block front sight combo. But this right here is still representative of our AK-47. Now, the AK-47 would serve Russia for a long time. They eventually adopted the AK-74, which is pretty much an AK-47 in a different caliber. AK-47, with its piston-driven design, has become extraordinarily reliable. Short of improper manufacturing, there is not anything that can really stop these rifles unless they are completely destroyed. As a matter of fact, I have a story to tell y'all. We'll just go ahead and call him a buddy of mine. A buddy of mine, his father worked for a sheriff's department, and he responded to a call where a car had lit on fire, like engulfed in flames. And after the fire, after further inspection, they discovered the back trunk had a pile of AK-47s in it. Now, they had been burned down to nothing. You know, no wood, and the finish had been burned off. I bet the heat treating was off on them as well. Well, he had taken them out of the trunk, and I guess they had them around for a little while, and one day he decided to go out, test fire them, see if they still functioned, and he beat them open, beat the carbon off of them, and they still functioned as well. These are very, very simple rifles, and there's not a whole lot that can go wrong with them. And with that gas piston design, it is designed to force itself open, and the spring behind it will force itself closed. It might not always be pretty, it might not always be comfortable, but like I said, short of improper manufacturing, these things will always function. By far the biggest issue they have is their fire control group, because the paper clips, we call them paper clips, the retaining clips that they have in there, those are prone to breaking, and oftentimes you'll have springs pop off. You know, looking at my firearms right here, I have over 100 years of Russian development right here. And it is absolutely insane to think about how far technology has come. We went, well, I know that this right here is Russia's development, but this is basically every country. We went from long bolt action rifle caliber rifles to intermediate short do-it-all weapons. Wow, I can't like, I can't even comprehend the significant amount of development that we've seen. Of course, even if you take into consideration the differences between the SKS and the AK-47, it is tremendous. Alright, well, I think I've rambled on about the history of these things long enough. As a matter of fact, the camera that I'm staring at right now is saying I've been talking for over 20 minutes. However, this is a lot to cover, and there's a lot that I didn't cover. I could cover these individual rifles with their own series, because there's so much to say about each and every one of them. However, I wanted to kind of group these all into one specific video. Maybe I'll make individual history lesson videos at a later point in time, but for right now, we're talking about Russian small arm development in general. So, I'm going to start off with their earliest pattern rifles and slowly work my way up. Now, I do not have an 1891 to show off, so I'm going to have to fire my 9130. However, as I said before, they are basically the same gun with a few minor changes. The 91 had this little pathetic excuse for a pistol grip. It had a few other features on it that were a little harder to manufacture than the 9130. But mechanically, they're exactly the same, and that's what really matters, right? Alright, looks like our target's kind of slouching over there. Well, boy, oh boy, I bet that woke him up. Yeah. These Mosins are known to be on the stickier side. They are good rifles, they do work. They're definitely rugged. You don't have to worry about these things failing, short of getting dirt into the locking lugs. These are definitely guns that will just run and run and run. If you can hit your target. Mosins do fire a little high, so I'm kind of trying to aim a little on the lower side. I don't like the way that plate is now facing me, so I'm going to go readjust that so I don't get hit by a ricochet. Alright, now, the Russians, much like many other countries, discovered that shorter rifles were becoming the go-to. Honestly, I don't really like firing this thing, because the concussive blast that comes out of it is absolutely nuts. Although this is a shorter rifle, it still uses the 54 rimmed, which is an insanely powerful cartridge for what they used it for. Here we go. Oh, jeez. This thing is crazy. Oh, God. The concussive blast almost hurts. On the bright side, though, this one does not shoot high. It just aim and fire. That steel target is having a bad day. And look, I even had the bayonet out like a champion. Now, I did not bring out any stripper clips to load my Mosins with. I don't know why, I just didn't really think about it. But those right there are loaded from stripper clip, just like this one is. However, Russian stripper clips are known to kind of suck. Mosin stripper clips, absolutely awful. SKS stripper clips, you can find ones that are decent, but for the most part, they suck as well. This right here is what they look like. 10 rounds of 7.62 by 39. They were discovering that semi-automatic rifles were the way to go, and intermediate cartridges were the way to go. So they dropped their 54 rimmed as their standard infantry round. Yeah, these stripper clips suck. And they adopted the 7.62 by 39 intermediate round in order to piss off as many people as possible with these freaking stripper clips. You know, the Vietnamese use these in combat quite significantly. I bet that they got very good at using them. Oh, would you look at that. We closed automatically and we're ready to go. This right here is considered to be the poor man's Garand because SKSs are still quite significantly cheaper than the M1 Garand. I do, however, like the trigger on this thing. It is way nicer. Mosin's trigger. I can't even see my target though. Look at it bounce. Well, I guess I have one more. I must have miscounted. There we go. Unlike the AK-47, the SKS does lock open on an empty magazine. I imagine that if they had this in the First World War versus their 91s, 1891s that they were using, man, that would have been a game changer. Alright, now we're moving on to the iconic AK-47. I wish I had an AK-74, but god damn it, those are so expensive. 7.62 by 39, just like the SKS was. This right here is what they were originally going for. They wanted the shorter, easier, lighter, more compact package that could serve them at combat distances that they were actually fighting at, along with being a submachine gun whenever they needed it to be. Alright. right, now the scope on this thing is zeroed out to about 100 yards, and we're about 50, so I'm not sure. Alright, yeah, she's hitting a little higher than I'd like. Okay. All right. Well, that was a lot of fun. And I wish that I had some more ammo. I'm now completely out of 54 rimmed. I'd love to take my Russian rifles out to a distance so we can lob some lead that would actually be a really good time. Maybe out to like 100+ yards. That would. I love hitting steel at like a far distance. You can hear if you go far enough, you can see it get hit before you even hear it. It's great. Anyway, like I said, I simply don't have the ammunition to continue to shoot these. So I did fire them off. I'm now completely out of 54 rimmed. 7.62 by 39 is stacking up in price, but not nearly as much as 223. So AK-47 is definitely the way to go, at least for right now. Okie dokie. Well, I'm gonna thank you guys for watching. If you like this kind of stuff, subscribe to the channel, because as you can see from my car down there, I do this kind of stuff all the time. If you like the video, do me an actual solid and actually like the video. YouTube's kind of anti-gun right now, and every like, every subscription, every share helps me push my channel through their anti-gun algorithm. It's something that they don't want me to do, but we can make it happen anyway. Check in the description down below. You're going to find a link to my Patreon, my Discord, find a link to my second channel where I get drunk and play video games. It's a great time. That's my fallback plan in case the tyrannical Buddha YouTube decides to get rid of this channel. I'm over here staring at my rifles, and honestly, I'm disappointed that I can't fire my Mosins anymore. I had so much fun firing that. Maybe not the M44. Simply because of the concussive blast with the 9130. It is such a nice rifle to shoot. This particular 9130, the trigger on it is a little rough, but I do have a refurbished 9130 where the trigger on it is much, much nicer. Unfortunately, I have no more ammunition. Why? I need to go on an ammo run. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I don't really want to, but I guess I'm gonna have to put these away. Alright, well, I'm gonna go do that, I guess. You guys go off, have a fantastic day. And again, thanks for watching. Since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.